Hello everybody, hoping that you're well. Today I'm excited because I'm going to share with you an interview that I had with Mr. Bob Chorley, Head of Training at Filmlight, and we discussed many different things from the history of Filmlight, what Baselight is about, and why should you consider using a control surface when grading. Without further ado, let's dive in.
My name's Bob. Some people call me Baselight Bob. I've been with Filmlight almost since the beginning of the company. The company actually, they were founded in 2002, and back then they were manufacturing a film scanner that was used for scanning 35mm film to then to digitize footage to then be used in a DI process. And Baselight was the color grading software which was used to grade the scans from the film scanner. So that's how the company basically started. So obviously we've come a long way in more than 20 years of development, but Baselight is still essentially it's a turnkey system that's used to take raw footage or source footage of various different kinds and apply color grades and other effects to give you the final look that's needed for the production. So it's not just a color correction system, it's a full post-production system. This is what people usually see when they see a Baselight system. Behind this, in the back room, there's a powerful processing node which contains all the GPUs. In our system it also contains the RAID, which has the source material, and that can be integrated obviously into the rest of the post-production environment. On the user interface side of things, we have a couple of displays that provide us with all the tools. We have the main grading display, and then in front of that we have the big panel, which is known as the Blackboard. Like everything in Baselight, it's been developed over a long period of time, and like with everything in Baselight, it starts with a particular need in the first place. Way back when we first started the Baselight system, we'd be using a very small panel which just basically had 3 trackballs and a separate panel that had just a jog shuttle control. And back in those days, things were relatively simple. We were just grading sequences of Cineon frames. We were applying the digital equivalent of film processing to do what was effectively digital color timing. However, very quickly people wanted to do a lot more than that. We were now dealing with images that were coming from a disk, so we could jump around the timeline, we could copy grades, we could do all sorts of other things, and so we realized very quickly that we would need a bigger panel with more buttons. So we, a few developers and myself, we spent a few weeks going through all the functionality that we had in Baselight at that time and all the features that we wanted to add and features that we'd been asked if we could add to Baselight, and we tried to work out how we would map those onto buttons. In most cases we wanted one button for each feature. And we didn't know how many buttons that would need. We weren't copying any existing hardware panels. There was nothing available that we could just buy and plug into Baselight. So once we'd come up with the functions and the buttons that we needed, I then basically made a mock-up where we put the buttons together in functional groups where they were all related to each other. I then designed the shape of a single button, which we designed in the shape of a film perf, because in those days it was all still from film. And then I used Illustrator to basically print out the different areas of buttons, stuck them all down on my desk just to see how big the panel might be, because we didn't know whether it would just be a small one or whether it would be like 3 meters wide. And in fact, what we ended up with was pretty much what we have here now. It was, I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it did seem to be the right size. It was big enough to look impressive. It wasn't too big. And then after that, obviously we needed to figure out if it was actually going to work. So we couldn't just go ahead and make it. So I made a mock-up using black cardboard and stuck these printouts of the buttons onto it, put 3 fake trackballs in the middle, and then we invited all the colorists that we could find to come around and pretend to do a grade on Baselight by pretending to push the buttons. And from their feedback and from how they wanted to move their hands and work with the user interface and keep their eye on the grade, we were able to move certain buttons around, add buttons we didn't have, take away buttons that weren't needed. And after that, we ended up, as I said, pretty much with that initial layout for the first Blackboard. That was the Blackboard, and now, of course, we call it the Blackboard 1 because we've moved on since then. That first Blackboard it was a similar layout to what we have here, but this is the Blackboard 2. The big difference between the Blackboard 1 and the Blackboard 2 is the Blackboard 1 had fixed buttons. So each button had a fixed legend on the button, and it did what it said on the button. A few of them, obviously, we had shift and control functions to add more functionality, but essentially the buttons did what they said. After adding more and more features to Baselight, we wanted to be able to customize the buttons. So the Blackboard 2 actually uses a different technology. We now have buttons where we can the legend on the button is projected from a screen behind, and each button is actually a tiny little projection tube with a back projected screen at the front. And so we have 220 buttons here, all of which we can remap and we can change to do any function we want. So one of the reasons that you need to have a panel like this and have all these buttons is it's partly about speed. When you're focusing on the grade on the screen in front of you, you don't want to have to keep clicking on menus with the mouse or maybe even using keyboard shortcuts. It's much nicer if your muscle memory will drive your hands to a particular point, just to press a button to add a grade, press another button to adjust the grade, maybe copy grades from one place to another. And all of these functions, you're basically playing it like a musical instrument, a bit like a large keyboard. So that's part of the reason. Also, for high-end facilities where people have clients in the room, it actually looks very impressive, and that does have value. You know, people pay a lot of money to come in to a grade session. They don't want to see somebody sitting here with a little tiny panel made of plastic. They want to see somebody sitting in front of a bespoke, custom-designed panel, which is actually made out of wood. So that's what we have here.
Awesome, thank you so much. Perfect.
That's all right.
Amazing. Yeah. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel to not miss future updates, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.